Good evening, one and all, and this session today with Vince Dignam, City of London, Michael Barratt from TfL, and Sheila Dixon from the Rising Sun, which we all poorly miss, and of course Eibhlin from Danny Sullivan Group. This session is probably one of the sessions I've been looking forward to because it starts the conversation about going back to business and going back to work and bringing Britain back to work. So I'm hoping to hear some interesting things today in terms of people's viewpoints and solutions that are being put in place. So I'd like to start with you, Vince, and if you could take us through in terms of what your business has been doing and planning to get back to work. That would be a good start.
Yeah, well, I'll start from where we were having sort of like 500,000 people, resident visitors and businesses attending the city today, to on around the 23rd, 24th of March of it going to zero, like a ghost town, like I've not seen it ever before in the time that I've been at the city. What we've had to do to keep it going in between was we've got 9,000 residents, so we've had to keep the frontline services going. Basically for the household waste collection and keeping the streets clean as well. So to answer your question where we are now with the ease of lockdown and everything else, we're going towards providing help and support to the businesses and all them visitors that will slowly come back into the city with the government's announcement on social distancing and being safe. So one of the key things that we've just got through committee, and we're working with TfL, you might hear some more on that later from Michael, is we're looking at sharing, because the streets in the city are very narrow, we're looking at commuter hubs around offices, around shops, around businesses, of introducing corridors of extended pedestrian areas and cycle areas so people can get safely in and out of the city. How this will help businesses is basically when you're lining up to go into your offices or shops for your shopping or your sandwich at Pretz or wherever you go to, what the businesses have asked us is to put signs on the street and the footways and make enough gaps and distance within the area to help do that at a social distance and safely. So it's been we've not had a lot of time to come up with this, and there's going to be about 2 or 3 different stages of introducing this. So there's a lot of work going into it. Our highways contractors are working with us, and I see across other boroughs and throughout London that there's other areas doing this as well. One of the other things internally what we're doing, because the only people that are in the city at the moment working and our outline the frontline workers. No one's in the offices at the Guildhall, that's all remained shut. But we've kept business as usual going, and we've got the planning applications still streaming through and traffic orders, and some of my team that usually just do street enforcement are actually putting them notices out, because you've still got your statutory duties of letting the applications and everything else go out. So all that work's continuing. And what the city have done internally as well for our own staff is we've done a big national survey of everyone, and we're going to work out what the new norm is and who we need to bring back. One of the things which is really top on it is working from home you can be isolated. So with Mental Health Week this week and well-being, we're very focused on that as well, because there's some people that are saying in different teams that they need the office to interlink as well with people. So part of the survey is going to work out who needs to come back, who can carry on working from home, because we don't see this going away till at least at the end of the year, and whatever the new normal will be, our chief exec and that will look at in the future. So last week, the first virtual committee for planning applications went through, and it's booming at the moment. It's not slowed down on the actual building applications for big buildings and developments going into the city. So you'll see online that there's quite a lot coming through and quite a lot more coming on. And the City of London projects are going to continue as well. When the Museum of London move to Smithfield Market, that's all continuing in the background, and contractors and tier 1 contractors bidding for that work and putting it in place. So there is a hell of a lot of work going on in the background. It's not just been shut the doors and wait to see what happens. We're supporting everyone. One of the key things that people would like to know about as well is the construction. That hasn't totally stopped from the 23rd. There has been construction still going on in the city at social distancing and everything else. It did tail off dramatically, but there were some key ones that kept going. And in the last week or two, we've seen a big change in the amount of traffic coming back into the city and buildings opening up and construction sites. So there is a big change, and you can see the people coming back in. It's being done safely, and it's worked well so far. And we've had our highways and planning team in to control all that as well. So there's quite a lot going on.
Okay, there's a few questions starting to come in on that now. So the first one I want to deal with, I suppose, is a contentious one in terms of the congestion charge. Can you give us clarity in terms of what way the congestion charge has been positioned now? Is it back reinforced? And is it at the same charge, or are there increases attached to that already?
Well, from the city perspective, we don't implement the congestion charge, but as far as we're concerned, and we have to adhere to it as well, so all our staff that we've got driving in have to adhere to the congestion charge and the ultra low emission zone charge as well. So we have to adhere to it, and all the people coming in have to adhere to it as well. But I just want to make it clear that it's not the city that implement them charges.
Well, that's good for that clarity. Could Vince tell us about the management process they use to create the ideas, please? And have they approached these differently than before? And how have they created the speed required?
Yes, what we've had to do is, well, like us all, we've had to use virtual meetings and teams and processes. For the planning applications, it's been amazing how they've kept that going, if I'm honest, in the virtual world. But how we've kept that also, linking it through, is some of my staff are frontline workers, and we've given them extra work to do by putting the planning application notice out on hoardings, going around and inspecting sites. And our specialist highways team, they've got a person coming in to check all that as well. So how we've dealt with it is by changing with technology, and so far it's worked well. Even to the point, I don't know whether people saw it, but Captain Tom even got the first virtual Freedom of the City. So with our Lord Mayor and our Chamberlain's department, so they still kept that going, tradition going, and it was the first one virtually ever. So we've adapted quite well. And what I've got to say is a big thanks to all the staff, really, because everyone has just bought into this. Because the first 2, 3, 4 weeks were just a roller coaster ride of what you have to do, how you have to, keep your services going. You can't let anyone down. You still have to respond even to our freedom of information requests and everything else. We've had to still keep all that going in the background and dealing with that. So yes, we've had to change dramatically, but we have changed, and I think so far we've not had many complaints saying that we're not doing what we should be doing.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Vince. Over to you, Michael, now. I just want to talk about the kind of freedom of movement within the city in terms of, we'd say, the underground and the use of the underground. So the importance of our own transportation instead of the underground, that was muted from a government level. Could you take us through that, Michael, and speak a bit about that first?
Right, so I'll start with TfL's been hit pretty hard because transport our main revenue source. We've had 7,000 staff furloughed. So the main thing is keeping transport going using operational and safety critical staff. So you can imagine we're quite stretched. With the government advising not to use public transport, that causes a major issue. And with tubes now slowly getting back to normal, I've got some figures, which I did write down, because I kind of knew this would come. You're looking at the moment around 75% of the tube is running. So we're still trying to gear slowly towards getting back to that 100%. But with the capacity being a big reduction, it's how we manage the people moving onto the tube that's a big concern.
And in terms of the use of the underground, I mean, is there any kind of advice in terms of the best use of the underground? Do we wear masks, etc.? Is that now recommended from a TfL perspective?
Well, at the moment, it's still trying to encourage people not to use that if they can use other means. So it's only if you have to, or that's your only choice you've got left, because we're still looking at key workers getting around. But we do encourage, if you do use it, to use a mask.
Right, and in terms of the frequency then, what milestones are we looking for in terms of, and looking out in media, to give us a guidance as to how that improvement is going to happen?
Right, that's a tough question for me to answer right now. I have to come back. have to come back to you on that one.
Okay.
But we are working towards that. As I was saying before, looking at 75% at the moment on the trains running. That's on the tube. We've also got the overground and TfL rail and trams. Okay.
You want to share a few slides on different elements, Michael. So could you take us through those different elements and perhaps explain in more depth, please?
Well, if you start with this one, the main thing is the social distancing, and how do we manage that amount of people and traffic movement in one go? Go to the next one. So the starting from yesterday, the charging's back in place. So you will get charged to come into London around those certain boundaries. I'm not too sure on the fares though, if they've increased, but what's starting to happen now across the whole of London, around the UK and the world, is what's called pop-up traffic management to help distance movement with people and cycling be the big focus. This is a few examples here of London Bridge, top left, St Thomas Street again, bottom left. The right-hand side is Camden and above at Park Lane. And we're taking up quite a lot of capacity of the road. Now, for businesses that rely on supply chains, traffic, if it goes too high, then you will have a bit of a delay with your goods getting delivered. Go to the next one. However, and we've strongly encouraged those that can have access to cycling within the city, is to start using other means. So you're looking at the Santanders. There are taxi bikes you can use if you haven't got your own. And the more we put safer infrastructure in, the idea is more people will start using it. And the other concern is because the traffic flows have dropped, speeds have gone up. And with Vision Zero, we're aiming for zero by 2041. It's unacceptable how people are behaving on the roads at the moment. So working with the police, there's a lot of teams to crack down on speeds. I think there's a couple of thousand offences already been done since the lockdown period. And to encourage people to cycle and walk, we don't want these kind of issues happening. And then you're looking at how do we get people around safely using social distancing. So at the moment, you do not have to pay for the buses. Now this will change at some point. There's no interaction with the driver. This is an example of the front doors you don't go through. And then if the bus is deemed as getting too full, they'll be asking people to wait for the next bus. So if you've got staff coming to work that are late, this is something you have to be aware of and then accept that and then work it into a flexibility. And again on the trains, so with behaviour, hygiene, we're working with the Met, British Transport Police on making sure everyone feels safe when they use the tubes and still guide on social distancing. And typical things like that is just the advertising that a lot of people are now doing, whether it's roundels on the floor, posters, etc. And then what we were saying before is encouraging people to use masks if they have to use public transport. And in a nutshell, we've got a brand new scenario that we have to manage now, and we need everybody's support.
Okay, that's great, Michael. Thank you for the update on that. I just want to take in a blend now of some businesses, and Danny Sullivan Group is, Eibhlin joins us from Danny Sullivan Group. So if you could just take us through some of the plans that you have put in place recently in order to cope with, I suppose, essentially the crisis at the start, but now in terms of reactive measures that you're developing within the business.
Yeah, well, after Boris's speech, obviously we've had a little bit of progress, and sites are slowly but surely starting to pick up again. But we've been very much working in line with Public Health England and the Construction Leadership Council. So with their set measures in place, we've been collaborating with our key clients to ensure that they are adhered to. But there's five main areas of focus, and that would be, so you're traveling to site, your welfare, working on site, logistics and meetings and whatnot. So traveling to site, obviously, we really encourage no use of public transport where necessary. Our fleet has actually gone up by 25%. So obviously we can't have a full bus loads. So obviously we have to meet the 2 meter distancing rules. So with that, it's kind of trying to kind of minimize that has been a key area of focus. Obviously as well, welfare on site is huge. There's been the 2 meter distancing rules. So slowly but surely it will pick up, but it won't be at a very fast pace. And obviously as well with logistics, we're trying not to get people working together, use machinery and whatnot where necessary. And also meetings as well are kept an absolute minimum. Working from home, obviously, for head office staff, which I think the introduction of Microsoft Teams and Zoom has been absolutely fantastic for all of us. And it kind of makes it maybe think that there's no need for the running and racing, to be honest with you, and things can be done a lot more digitally. So with that in mind, I think the welfare of staff is of the utmost of importance, but it's good to know that things are starting to progress and things are moving forward slowly but surely, but at least it's a bit of a positive spin on things, you know.
And in terms of the week that's in it, and mental wellness is a big area. What is the company's approach on that, and how are they assisting in that area?
I think with us being a people-centered business, I think with everything that everybody is going through, mental health and positive mental health has been of the utmost important for all of us. So we've really been trying to put like steps in place. We've been sending out a lot of webinars and self-development, but in terms of resilience, a lot of people as well working from home with kids, it's been a struggle at times, and you know our moods have been up and down, so we've been sending out a lot of help and keeping kids activities and schoolwork. But we've had a huge campaign for mental health awareness this week, and kindness is the theme throughout for this week. So a lot of just looking out for each other. We've had a lot of logins with Zoom, and as well with our furlough staff, trying to keep the morale up and trying to send out messages of positivity is really, really important.
And in terms of the furloughed staff, has the company adapted any kind of training policies while that has happened, or is that something that they've looked into?
Oh, absolutely. Training has been at the forefront of the business. I think a lot of it was professional development, and obviously working with our key partners, Keeson. We've had a lot of apprentices that were able to do all their work offline and send all their information through the digital portals, which has been fantastic. In terms of our furloughed staff, we work with a lot of organizations, so there was plenty opportunity for people to like upskill and self-development, and that was something that was really, really important to us as a business.
So what are the key changes that you see now in the business that COVID has, let's dip into the positives out of this that you've picked up?
Absolutely. Well, in one thing, I know that a lot of people haven't probably been made redundant and might not have jobs at the moment, but the pipeline of work in construction is huge. I know we might be at a standstill at the minute and are making a slow progress, but when things do start to pick up, there will be a lot of work, and maybe people that didn't even consider working in the construction industry that might have transferable skills. There's a fantastic opportunity there for people to get back into work. So that is one positive. Another positive as well with the Brexit coming in. I know I never thought I'd be looking forward to speaking about Brexit after everything that's happened, but hey, so with the immigration points-based system that's coming in, a lot of our EU workforce won't be able to get visas anymore, so we have to rely heavily on the UK for working on site and delivering these huge projects such as HS2, and we've got Highways England with the RDP frameworks. So I think there'll be a lot of work coming up and a lot of work available if people would be interested in working in construction.
Well, that's great, positive news to hear, and well received. I just want to bring in Sheila Dixon now from the Rising Sun in St. Paul's, and when I do that, I lick my lips and kind of wait for the point that I can have a pint of Guinness in my hands again. But Sheila, for the industry in general, it's a particularly very difficult time. So tell us some of the journey in terms of what you've been thinking about, and what's important in terms of keeping in touch with your customers, with your staff in general. How are you coping with that?
Okay, well, for us, it is all about keeping in touch as much as we can with our customers and with our team, who we rely on every day to represent us and to put ourselves forward as a business. We employ a lot of young part-time students and people who have no experience of ever facing anything difficult before. So for them, it's been the first time to have any experience of a crash in society, a stop to their lives. So we have actually been running a sort of weekly Zoom meetings with them, trying to get everyone just to meet up and see each other's faces and reassure them, you know, we're still here, everybody's still fine, we're going to get through this. And that's been really, really important to keep up morale and to keep them feeling strong and confident about their futures. With our customers, we've spoken to a lot of customers who are in a situation where they're very unsure about their own jobs and their futures. Our business being based right in the heart of the city, our customer base is 85 to 90% of office-based workers in the square mile, with about a 10% of tourism thrown in, which obviously both are pretty non-existent at the moment. Everybody's quite worried about getting back to work, and I think one of our biggest challenges is that even facing partial opening, it will be people partially returning to work. So that's something we're going to have to really look at how we're going to work around that, how we're going to encourage people to get back into the city and stay in the city when they're there. Not, you know, people have anxiety about using public transport. It's a whole big area, but we're putting a brave face on, we're trying to keep in contact, and we're trying to just put out there to make people realise that the pub is going to be a safe place to come to. We have always been a safe, friendly environment. We've worked really hard over the years as a small business, just being part of a community, and a community within a working city, which is something that's just being demolished at the moment. So we need to slowly just build up the confidence in people, invite people back, welcome back Beta on their networking, you know, every second Thursday of the month, hopefully see you all again, and welcome our old friends and hopefully new friends. And hopefully, you know, just as Eibhlin said, that there will be people who will change their careers. There will be people who will find opportunity in these times. But just if we can all support each other and give each other the confidence and realise that as human beings and for our own sanity, for our own well-being, it's so important to socialise, to mix with people, to know that you're not alone on your journey, whether it's a good one or a bad one, and that we are here to look after each other. So that's my story.
And we spoke earlier about the opportunity of the upstairs area in the pub being utilised for groups and stuff like that. So is that something that we can put out there to people to say that, you know, they could contact you if they're interested in talking about that?
Yeah, so we've just decided to change our situation. Whereas before upstairs was run as a separate restaurant, we're now going to take that back as part of the pub and use that area where people can have networking events or want to have small social gatherings, and keep that as a separate area. So yeah, absolutely. Once we get the green light to go ahead and reopen, we will be doing everything we can to get everybody back.
Good stuff. Well, we look forward to that. We really look forward to that one. Michael, I want to go back to you and ask you about the bikes in particular, the Santander bikes. Do you anticipate an added stock to cater for the extra numbers in that regard?
Well, there's a work in progress to put extra in. We've actually lost a few docking stations because of using space for safe distancing. But for example, I think last Sunday there was 51,000 plus hires during the one day, which is, there is a lot of cycles available. It's just depending on what area your staff are going to be coming in from. I think the big question. But it's not just about, sorry, just a quick one. It's not just about the Santanders, there's also the cycle to work opportunities.
Okay, and Vince, a question for you. Are there any signs that large employees or employers in the city are going to be staggering start times?
Well, at the moment, it's early days yet, and we're trying to gather that information, if I'm honest, of who's going to be coming back into the city and when and how long. But from our point of view, yes, we will be staggering start times of the staff. We've just drawn up rotas today for our frontline staff because we're going to need to introduce more people into the city working. And we've looked at times from early mornings through off-peak as well. And I think that will be sort of follow to all the private companies who operate in the city as well. And for people in construction, they'll have their construction logistics plans that everyone will be working to, and they'll be starting to look at times and regrouping deliveries and everything else. So there'll be a lot of chopping and changing to make this work, basically. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for people out there and in Bitter to look at new ways of working. And I think, to be honest with you, it's a positive way as well, because from my memory, back in 2012, when we done this for the Olympics, we can do it again for these tough times to get everything moving and working. And I'd just like to add to what Eibhlin said. You know, what a big positive out of it for us as well is helping people with mental health and their well-being, and we've done a lot of training online. So I see it being a great way forward of interaction for these people who sometimes feel like they're lonely. And we've seen it, you know, in my organisation, it's been a big positive. And we've actually, you know, I was on another call today with some of our suppliers who are setting these meetings up as well. Once upon a time, it had taken me 4 hours to get there, an hour's meeting and 4 hours back. So we're saving time and being more productive. So I see that being, I don't want to lose that social interaction, but also there's a time and a place where, you know, you can do that. So I think there's a lot of positives come out of this as well.
Okay, and finally then, Vince, in terms of any streets completely pedestrianised, could you go through any information that you have in that regard?
Well, what we're going to do, it's going to be done in stages. Bank Junction already, that was implemented before as a safe area, and only certain only buses and cycles can go through that between 7 and 7. And there's going to be other streets that will be 7 till 7. And then we're trying to make it as easy for everyone. So if there's construction sites on them areas, we're going to have the traffic orders for that, and there'll be exemptions and times when particular people can come in. There's going to be one ways put in. There's at the moment it'll be temporary barriers, and then the third stage will be permanent pedestrian areas between certain times, which will be implemented. But it'll all be on a trial and error basis to make sure that everyone's safe and it all works well for everyone.
And from a city's perspective, I mean, have we seen general increases in a short space of time? Because, I mean, if you look at, we'd say, what happened in Northern Ireland last night in terms of their approach to restrictions and the U-turn in terms of lots of restrictions being lifted there. Do you see similarities in it happening? I mean, are we going to be moving on a day-to-day basis? Will things be radically changing that quickly? Or do you think it's going to change on a staggered basis?
Well, what we did see over the last weekend actually is what you asked Michael there is about the bikes. We saw a lot of people on Saturday and Sunday on bikes, a hell of a lot coming through, just looking at the sites, getting out, using some of the open space areas and looking at, you know, St Paul's and that on their way by and everything. But at the moment, it's a bit unknown, but I see that it's going to be very staggered. And that's what we're monitoring closely. That's what we got people in the city watching out for as well. And the one of the ways that we can look at that is by the commercial waste, because commercial waste in the city from all these businesses just wasn't on the street for the past couple of months. But we've just over the last week or so, and this week, we're seeing an increase in commercial waste coming out. So that's telling us that there is a slight phase return of certain businesses. But what I'm hearing, whether it works out or not, is that a lot of the central markets and everything will be sort of able to work from home and be returning staggered. So we're having a lot of discussions with all the big businesses to see how quick they are going to return as well. But that's the worry, if I'm honest, Paul, is how we manage that and increase the staff and keep everyone working at the right time, because we don't want to have people out there that don't need to be out there, to keep them safe throughout this time as well.
Okay, and Sheila, in terms of the hospitality industry, we've heard muted tones that there's a possibility of a gentle opening to an outdoor scenario within the public. Could you kind of enlighten us more in terms of how that would work? You'd have to unmute there, I think. Right.
Yeah, so basically any pubs that have beer gardens, outside areas, roof terraces are going to be the first ones to open, but they will have also very great restrictions. There will be social distancing will actually be implemented there as well. So they will want people to be 2 meters apart. It's not yet confirmed as to whether or not people will actually be able to come to the bar to order drinks, whether it will only be table service. So all these things are currently under review, and we have not been told when we will be able to open yet. But I presume through the furloughing situation being extended until the end of October, that's pretty much a good indicator as to what they're assuming for our industry.
And how supportive has the industry been during these hard times?
The industry has been very, very good. It's really got together to try and help look after people in these times. The hospitality industry as a whole, we've had loads of free training schemes online that we've got lots of the staff doing and following over this time. Furlough has just created security for all these people. There have also been lots of charitable things set up through the drinks industries. So for example, Diageo and Britvic have set up funds that help people who have no support in any other way. They've also supplied the training schemes, so online dip in, dip out events that mean people are able to just keep up to date with what's happening, learn new skills, and basically make themselves a better place for when the business does reopen.
Very good. Back to Vince, do you feel the staggering of large HEVs and high pedestrian at times will be brought forward as we'll find more pedestrians and cyclists on our roads? Probably Michael and Vince could answer this one after the other.
Well, the direct vision, for me, the direct vision standard will be, I don't know whether it'll be brought forward any quicker because it's due in October anyway. So I think, you know, giving people who run them sort of vehicles, it'll be, they'll be all preparing for that now. As we are in the city with our vehicles, we're getting the permits and the 5-star rated vehicles for the direct vision standard and everything else. Michael might be able to comment more on if they are thinking of bringing it forward. I haven't heard anything to that, but what you will see is pedestrians high pedestrians taking over the city footways and with this at the present time, I believe, and it will be accelerated because the government, you may have seen, the government have put a lot of money into the cycle lanes and the pedestrianisation and everything of cities and areas for the safety. And what people have also seen since this time and the King's College and everywhere else, the air quality, everyone sees how good the air quality has been. You may have noticed the difference yourselves, and I think the weather is a telling part of how the climate's changing as well over these, because I've never seen weather like this since March all the way through to April, as hot and everything else. So there is another positive there, that the climate is changing, and it could have accelerate a better CO footprint and the climate in the future.
Okay, and a question here: what measures have been put in place to make sure that employees are going back to work healthy and COVID-free, so they don't put their colleagues at risk?
Well, there is testing from the government, from our point of view, because it started with essential and frontline workers. So that's all in place. And also, we will be putting in place any extra measures that we need to from the city perspective, and that will come out of the survey, what people need and what's on offer, basically. You know, it's actually down to putting the measures in for safe distancing within the offices, all different measures going in, and we're having to look at, you know, new shower areas and more kitchen areas and everything else, so people are not sharing. But all them measures will be looked at, and that'll be part of how we get back to normal and what testing we need to do. But there are people being tested and allowed to be tested now, so that's all happening as we speak through the government. That was, though.
And finally, Michael, is TfL still planning to introduce the ULSEZ extension later this year?
Get back to you on that one.
You'll get back to me on that one. Okay, that's thanks for firing that one right back to me. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us. As usual, BITA will work with TfL and City of London to keep you informed with the ongoing kind of developments in any area in terms of logistics and social distancing. So it's been very useful imparting that information. Thank you very much for joining us and continuing to follow and support the BITA platform. So keep safe, keep well, and we'll see you fairly soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, Mum.